Hello again and welcome to this interview in the series that is all about empowering a league of extraordinary mothers on how to use the power of food to get more energy, a body we love and that zest for life that we crave. Today we have with us Jude Blereau. Jude is a chef, award-winning author, speaker and cooking teacher with a passion for guiding us from the wisdom we've learned about what foods to eat to turning those foods into delicious delicious meals.
That will affect your mood.
It is good for our moods as well, Jude. Welcome and thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Edwina, and hello to everybody. Lovely to meet you. And I'm sure there's probably some familiar faces as well here. So hello to you too.
I imagine it is. Jude, I'm going to give out the award for the best background in this series, and you've done it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I just want to dig my nose into those roses.
Well, it's springtime, and spring in Perth it's really beautiful. Yeah. And my roses are doing really well this year. Yeah. What you can primarily see though there, that the yellow one is Graham Thomas. Is just butter yellow. Butter yellow is one of my favourite colours. So, yeah.
Do you know, this is the second interview I've done. I went and bought a new camera to do this and I keep looking at the wrong one. So I just did your whole intro looking at the wrong camera. But I'm sure our audience will thank you.
I won't mind. I won't know.
Jude, please, can we start with your story and how you came to be doing the work that you do now?
Okay, so it's probably quite different from everybody else. When I was little, I used to do two things. I used to play two things, I guess you could say. I used to design and sew clothes for my Barbie dolls and have shops, fashion parades. And I used to teach the neighbourhood kids how to cook. And they have been my two careers, I guess you could say. I started off as a kindergarten teacher and I still have a very strong interest in how we nourish young children. Indeed, I wrote a book about it and it's still something very close to my heart. And then I had my own business designing for quite some years. But I think my mum, I'm Italian heritage. The Blereau doesn't actually tell you that, but my mum's Italian. And I grew up with good food, but also grew up in an era, I think, as much as I'm not a Catholic these days, I think there was a great deal of kind of, I guess you would say, sacredness in how I was brought up, like gratitude for the food that we have, growing food in the backyard, sourcing food locally, knowing where your food came from. And I just was born with this really strong belief that food is a critical, important part of your life. It informs all you are. And I loved providing it for people. So in my mid-30s, when I was, more towards the end of my fashion career, it just wasn't feeding my soul enough, and I had been interested in it for some time. I'd started studying nutrition part-time, but it was just, it didn't fulfill what I needed, and I was really torn between going into food in a cafe or something, or nutrition and that aspect of it. And at that point I went to the US. I went to New Orleans, which is kind of like my spiritual home and my second home. And it's like I was literally there for one day when I walked into a shop and a book fell off the shelf in front of my feet. I just get goosebumps every time I think about it. And it was called Food and Healing by Anne-Marie Colbin, who's remains my greatest inspiration. And it was then that I'm like, yeah, okay, I know I could see exactly what I wanted to do. And what I want to do, and still to this very day is what I'm interested in, is taking the information that everyone hears out there, and mind you, these days has become incredibly conflicting and confusing, and translating that into the food that you eat. Because it's all very well to go, oh yeah, that's cool, I want to be gluten-free, or I want to have quinoa. And there was a show on TV once where this woman would go into people's homes. I think she was this English nutritionist, and she'd say, well, no, have a quinoa porridge. Well, you might have a quinoa porridge and cook it. And if you don't understand quinoa, or you don't know how to make it digestible and delicious, what's going to happen is that your family are going to go puke.
Yeah.
And your husband's going to go, no way, it's gone. You've done. It's lost.
Yeah.
You don't have that opportunity again.
Yeah.
Translation happens in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It happens when we source food, understanding how to source food and why certain things about sourcing food are so important.
Yeah.
Why the soil it's growing in is so important, why seasonality is so important, why locality is so important, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But just as important is the skill of how to translate that, the know-how. Yeah, so that's, and look, fundamentally, I'll probably sum it up and say, I'm a Sagittarian on a mission, probably been on a mission since I was born. And I just want, I think this knowledge has been a part of food culture, the way, and food culture is the way humans, or all different cultures, survival, shelter culture, building fire culture, or building shelter. These cultures are critical to the survival of humans. Yeah. And there's a food culture. It's our entire understandings of how to grow, produce, prepare, cook food, and eat it.
Yeah.
And that's all gone.
Yeah.
It's in tatters all around the world.
Yeah.
And so people don't have these skills anymore. And that's my interest, is to empower you, that are my dear listener that is sitting there, and my readers, to empower you with the know-how how to do this, but knowing why you're doing it as well. Mm. So there you go. That's me.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm in. I'm sold. You talk about that, bringing in something out of the norm, like a quinoa, and cooking it and getting it wrong, and then we've lost it. I believe that that's what's happened with children and vegetables, because we're getting these vegetables from the supermarket that are lifeless and flavourless and picked before they're ripe and sprayed with chemicals, and they taste disgusting. No wonder we have a generation of kids that don't like vegetables, because those vegetables taste revolting.
They do. It's like you don't need to be a scientist to work that out. Yeah. It's like, we are profoundly disconnected from our food. But the other thing that I'd like to say there as well is that I actually think that this aspect of this, I was going to say paranoia, it's not paranoia, and it's important, but this critical focus on we want children to eat more vegetables is a part of this loss of food culture. Yeah. Generations have grown up, including my generation. I grew up in the 50s. I'm 64. Including my mum's generation. My mum's currently 98 and a half and still living at home and cooking, and much of her generation were. Yeah. And when we eat seasonally, at some times of the year, there's not a lot of green veggies or other veggies around, and there are fundamentally what's happening in society at the moment is there is a question being asked, and that question is, what makes the food that we eat wholesome and healthy and ethical and sustainable? Yeah. Getting all these different people going, well, go paleo, go raw, go vegan, go vegetarian. And I can tell you that is not your answer. Yeah. There are a lot more important fundamentals at play, and they're the foundation of my work, as well as that aspect of translating that. Yeah. And this thing, children will be fine. You don't have to hide veggies. You don't have to get crazy about children eating vegetables. I'm always fond of saying, eat a broad range of foods that are in season. fruit and veggies that are in season. You know, don't eat them out of season. Your child will be fine without the ubiquitous fruit platter every day, including strawberries that are out of season and are, by the way, one of the most heavily sprayed fruits. And I'd like to also throw into that is that there are lots of different ways of looking at things. And one of the doctors that I really love, Dr. Thomas Cowan, who's based in San Francisco and is part of the Western A Price Group. And I'm sure that everyone, Edwina, in this through the summit have heard about Western Price. Have?
Right. I imagine many have, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and he is a Western trained doctor as well as an anthroposophically trained doctor. Anthroposophy is Rudolf Steiner's kind of medical philosophical system.
Yeah.
What he would say, what Thomas Cowan says, he says pretty much, particularly for children under 3, he would say stop stressing about children not eating their vegetables. He say you're probably far better off to let the animal or the fish eat the algae or the animal eat the grass and do the conversions that they do. Because when you're eating veggies and the things that you want, particularly some of your omega-3 fatty acids, which what you really want are your EPA and DHA derivatives out of them, and beta-carotenes that get converted to vitamin A, which is a critical vitamin, as you know.
Yeah.
What he would say is you're far better off to let the animal do the conversion and then eat the milk, the butter, the cheese, the egg, the fish eggs, etc. And the conversion's done for you, because sure, when you eat those vitamins and veggies and things, or those veggies and fruits, you're getting all those lovely, antioxidants and etc. and all those kind of really great things. But your child is not going to be, even an adult is not going to be doing it on that great, is converting those really critical things like your long-chain omega-3 derivatives, which are the essential things, and doing the conversion to vitamin A. In fact, I think some of the best, most optimistic conversion rates I've seen for an adult is 30%.
Yeah.
So there's many ways of looking at it. And I digressed, I know. I digress so easily. But it's just not this simple. It's what I would like to say is that it's not black and white.
Yeah.
But it's much simpler than you think as well.
Yeah. Cindy O'Meara's on this summit, and her interview will have already aired when this one goes live, so people will have heard this. But she talks about, our gut microbiome, which is so critical to processing all this food, is actually very adaptable and will adapt to high protein diets or high carbohydrate, whatever it is, but it won't adapt to modern food. So it's not adapting to the highly processed, highly fortified colours and all those things, but it does adapt to, depending on where we live in the world and what is seasonal and all those sort of things. So that, that really ties in with what you're just saying now.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think there's actually a really critical point in that.
Yeah.
And the critical point in that is that when you are eating food that you recognise that is grown, that is not fake, and you've got to remember that a lot of what we're eating now, or that you're buying in a supermarket, etc., is not real. It's the matrix world of food. It's an illusion, so it's not real.
Yeah.
And that real aspect is incredibly important, because your body, yet, God knows what's going to happen in 100 years from now, but your body is an organic machine on the earth plane. And I'm a great believer we're a spiritual being having a human experience. But on the earth plane, your body is an organic machine that functions organically. Bacteria, viruses, all those things, they're all organic forms that are highly intelligent.
Yeah.
And food that nature provides us, and that has provided us over the millennia, is organic as well, not grown in organic soil, how we think of it as well, but it's an organic-based matter. Like understands like.
Yeah.
Your gut bacteria do not understand fake or chemicals or when it's refined, processed and reformed. And it's that real aspect that's really critical. Like will only understand like. So it will adapt to those things because, you know, that's what we as DNA and bacteria and bugs and everything have been doing since the earth began. We've been adapting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something in my head that just keeps coming up, and I hear this and I witness it in the community, and that is the understanding, and I think it's just worth sort of talking about a bit more, is that understanding of what real food is and what we're talking about. Because we can walk into a fast food restaurant and buy a burger and it is bread, lettuce, onion, cheese, and a meat patty. And what makes those ingredients not real food as opposed to, you know, you can make that out of not real food and real food. And I think this is where people get tripped up. Is that something that that we can look at a bit further? You know, I see, you know, if we go in somewhere and you buy a salad sandwich and it's white bread and the ingredients are, you know, it's a plastic cheese versus a good quality cheese, and a white bread versus a sourdough bread, and, you know, it's those kind of things that I think pick people up a bit as well.
And I think that it's really what it is a matter of what is involved in that is a degree of drawing your line. But and let me discuss that for you, and let's use a sausage roll as an example. Okay,
perfect.
Okay, so let's say your optimum sausage roll. Okay, an optimum sausage roll would be made, for me, from lamb mince, because I don't like beef or pork. I'm a bit of when I eat meat, I like lamb.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about a meat sausage roll, but you can make vegetarian ones as well.
Yeah.
But so what I've got is the most optimum of that is I've sourced my lamb as close as possible to the person who has grown the lamb.
Yeah.
And that lamb is living the life that it's meant, that sheep is living the life that it's meant to live and eating the food that it's meant to eat, and it's been allowed to express its essential sheepness, etc.
Yeah.
And I would like it as local as possible. So for me, I've sourced that from Anthea at Maccabee Dorper lamb, and it's a shoulder where there's quite a nice degree of fat in it as well, because that's what mince is.
Yeah.
So that's that aspect of it. It's been ethically raised, it's been sustainably raised, it's been respected. Every part of that animal is used by Anthea. They have a butchery as well where every part is used. So that's that aspect.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to chop up some onion in it, and that onion is again has been sourced, or at least from Western Australia for me. And I've got lovely herbs that I'm going to put in it. I've got a good quality salt, which is not refined. I like a Celtic sea salt is my preference. I like sea salts over land salts, but that's just a personal preference. But it's not refined, so everything is there. It's not been refined and had things taken away from it. It's as close as possible to its natural state. My herbs are generally, always organic, and pepper. Okay, so that's that. You could put other great carrot in it if you want, but let's just go. We've just got that. Yeah. My pastry, I tend to make my own pastry. So we're talking about this little Nirvana, got a crown on it, sausage roll, okay, at the moment. And so I tend to make my pastry, my puff, and I'm a bit of a fan of spelt, not, and critically, it's really important, not because I believe that wheat is evil. I really, as a baker, and that's one of my real strengths and fortes as a baker, I really like the flavour and crumb of spelt. And And so I've got my spelt. So there you go. And I've used a semi-refined spelt, so it's not got too much bran and germ in it, but it's not been refined. It's whole. It's just had some of the bran and germ sifted off. It's biodynamic. It's been grown in the best possible soil. It's not West Australian, but it would be Demeter Mills from New South Wales, which I really love. It's a very high quality one. And what else? And I've got great butter in it. Okay, so I've got a biodynamic butter in it as well. Yeah, so that's how you grow it. It's got a little crown. Yeah.
Yes.
Now your next level down is you might go, okay, no way I'm going to make puff pastry, Jude. Fine. Buy a really great brand like Carême. I love Carême. It's a South Australian brand. Willem and Claire are just gorgeous. They do all sorts of different pastries, including gluten-free, and they use real ingredients, okay? Not all of them would be organic, but they're all real. So they'd have, their puff is just a lovely white quality wheat. It's not organic, but they use good quality butter. It's not organic, but it is a proper puff. Yeah, it's a proper pastry.
Yeah.
And so you do that. And then you might go another step down where you buy a Pampas butter puff from the supermarket. Fine, refined wheat, okay, butter, but it's better than a puff pastry with oil, okay? And then you might just buy, so next step down is, okay, you've got a puff pastry and you've got just a mince that you bought from the butcher. Yeah, it might not be organic or biodynamic or ethical, but maybe it's had a better life. It's free range, yeah? So you go that. Once you've kind of passed that line, where you're getting into what I would absolutely call fake food is when you start getting into a puff pastry that has been made with oil.
Yeah. And
refined oils are dangerous. Yeah. And what people need to understand is not like Nuttelex. I'm on a mission to remove Nuttelex from every shelf in the planet, but that's made from highly refined oils, which when they process them or refine them, they damage them profoundly. Yeah, they're full of free radicals, which are really, free radicals are why you need antioxidants. Okay, they're incredibly damaging to the body in so many ways. So, but not only are they're not just oils they add, because you can't make nice pastry with oil. You've got to have a solid oil. So then they hydrogenate it, which means they make it solid, which makes it even more dangerous. And that's the trans fatty acids that you might hear about. So that is when you get to really super fake. And then when you get to super, super, super bad fake is when you buy little sausage rolls that are already made, that are in a packet, that will have a whole lot of numbers added to them as well, because basically they've got to survive for another 100 years sitting on the shelf or the fridge in the supermarket. Yeah, they're never going to go off.
Yes.
Does that make sense, Edwina?
You have answered that question beautifully. Thank you so much. That is exactly the message I'm trying to.
Great. And I just wanted to say another thing there. I'm sorry, but just before, because they jump in my mind and then they jump out of my mind. It's like, I will often say to people that, you know what, if you are wanting to shift and make changes and you're just at the beginning of this journey, even if you go and buy let's talk about a biscuit or a cake that you're making for your children for a lunchbox.
Yep.
If you go and buy just even a white wings or something, white flour, and even if you're doing white sugar, but you make that cupcake or woman's weekly cake or biscuit with white sugar, white flour, egg, butter, and real vanilla extract, you are light years ahead of what you're buying in a packet on the shelf.
Yes.
Okay? And I would say to you, if that's where you are, you start there.
Yep.
Don't go diving in and think, I'm going to go do this gluten-free and I'm going to do that. No. Start there. Then move up to an organic white flour. Yeah. Maybe move up to a less refined sugar, because every time you change one aspect of what you're doing, particularly in baking, it's going to throw the whole recipe out. So you do it little step by step.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I think that is just such a critical message, just to start where we are. It's not a comparison game. It's not a competition. It's just like, let's take little steps.
And it absolutely is. But I think it's also really critical for people to know, and what I'm seeing is that, and I'm sure there are people sitting, listening to this that are going, oh, but I can't have sugar. Sugar's bad. I've got to quit sugar. Sugar's evil. Yeah. You know what? It's not about the sugar. Yeah. The refined white sugar. Sure, it's bad. Yeah. But anything that's refined is salt. Refined salt's really bad. Yeah. Don't have to be a scientist to work that out.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not necessarily about that. It's about what you want to do. That's more important is getting your fundamentals in place first of all. Now, I do a lot of online. I'm moving all my classes online. Yeah. And the Revive, Restore, Reset that I do is about that. Yeah. It's getting your 5 core whole food principles that will make a difference and will transform your life. And I can tell you, it's not necessarily about, oh, I can't have sugar. My mum and her entire generation of people that went to the war and came back and had hard lives, and that her entire generation and myself had white flour and white sugar. What they had that we no longer have is profound fundamentals in place. And some of those fundamentals include things like they actually ate breakfast, lunch and dinner, and they actually ate real food. They actually ate it in season. They actually didn't run around living crazy, crazy, crazy lives. They generally, you weren't I'm not saying they didn't have trials and things like that, but the structure of society was much different. My dad was always home for dinner. He didn't work 12 hours a day. People worked, they ate together as families. They lived together on a weekend. They actually had a weekend. There was this issue of the balance, I guess, of things were better. And you see these people, they're all passing and leaving us now. But you see these old guys and these old country women that, you know, they did a lot of physical exercise. They had profound fundamentals in place. And they're still walking the whole length of the Anzac Parade. They're still out there doing things like my mum's doing. Now, sure, she's not as good as she used to be.
Yeah.
But it's not about, I just want to say to you, don't stress out. The stress is worse than anything else. Yeah. If you're having a bit of white sugar now, that's not necessarily where you start. Start by just making a real cupcake or biscuit, even if it's got white flour and white sugar in it, but you're using a real egg to condition it and texturize it instead of numbers that are being used to flavour, texturize, give lifespan, all those kind of aspects. That's the difference of real food, is that you use real food to provide the colour, the flavour, the taste, the condition, the lifespan, the texture of it, rather than numbers and chemicals.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly. It's interesting that you talk about the different generations and the levels of stress, because I actually talked about this in an earlier interview, and I had an email from a woman who kept the conversation going, which I love and I highly appreciate when people do. But she said that, you know, I talked about how much more stressed we all seem to be now, particularly mothers, as we just take on more and more and more. And in our culture, we have this kind of guilt attached to stopping and doing nothing. But she said that she feels that that it's not necessarily the case, that women have always had these huge stresses. They just change as the generations change.
I don't know that I agree with that. And I think the reason why I don't agree with that is literally because I'm 64.
Yeah.
And I have lived through women's liberation. okay? And my feeling about that, I think that nothing happens just out of the blue. Everything comes from something. And my belief, so I was a very limited, gone to a Catholic college kind of, girl. You left home, you became a teacher or a secretary, and you got married. Okay, I did that.
Yeah,
I was incredibly unhappy.
yeah,
And in a very unhappy marriage. And I remember to this day being in the bath. Don't want to cry. I remember being in the bath one night and reading Betty Friedan's Feminine Mystique, which had just come out. And I was like, oh my God.
yeah,
I've got options. And so I then very much was I took that and I ran with that. But what I see is that embedded in the female revolution, which is a wonderful thing, and a lot of women my age and older than me are saying exactly the same thing. There was an embedded myth in that, and that myth was you can have it all. You cannot have it all. You cannot do it all. Something will give. And what is happening is that all that's happening for this younger generation now is they've got this idea that female liberation was about you can go and get a great career and earn lots of money. No, it's about a lot of other things. And there's a lot of guilt around if you haven't got an online business, or God knows if you're not a blogger, or God knows if you're not this. And you've got to be seen to be amazing, so to speak. So I think that this issue for me, my feeling is that a lot of that guilt is embedded in that. But I think, sure, and I think what was happening in previous generations is, even though it wasn't great, and nothing's ever perfect, is those roles were more clearly defined. A woman's role is still very kind of, it's like it's gone from not having anything to you've got to have everything. And I think we're still trying to find that kind of balance in the middle of it. But what I wanted to say about that is that it's not just the parents that are stressed. And what I'm really concerned about is what is happening to our children. And I would beg of you, of every mother or parent or father that's listening to this, is stop running your children around to do every single activity and after school activity on the planet. Stop it. Our kids are exhausted. They're tired. In a lot of cases, they're hungry because they're not only doing what we do, running around, learning, thinking, running a body, they're growing and building a body as well. And they have a huge requirement for nutrient-dense food, and that's what my book Whole Food for Children's all about. And it's not flash, but it's nutrient-dense, and because that's what your body runs on. And this generation of children is the first generation in a long time that is they believe are going to die before at a much younger age than their parents. It's crazy out there. Plus, putting on my kindergarten teaching hat, it's incredibly distressing to see what's happened to education. With regard to all education focuses on now, particularly for very young children, is intellectual or cognitive development. And I can tell you what children need. Intellectual development happens. What you need before you get that, for it to happen, is they need to be nourished, so your body can get past the primary aspect of, Maslow's hierarchy needs, I've got to eat or I die, okay? And then they need to be emotionally secure, I'm loved, okay? That's the soul's, Maslow's primary hierarchy need. I need to be loved, okay, or else I don't survive. And there's hundreds of studies on that as well. And then it's the social and physical development. Then comes intellectual. What your children need to do is slow down, and they just and we need to slow down as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I, you know, as you talk, putting together, you know, pieces of a timeline, and you talk about this generation that's the first generation that's expected to die younger than their parents. The generation they're actually talking about is those that are born in the 70s, and a lot of people don't realise this. But you talk about being born in the 50s and how you ate, and then it just started to change through the introduction of fast food restaurants, which were well and truly in place by the 70s, which is when they came up with the food pyramid, because people had forgotten how to eat.
Yep.
And that is when women started to really enter the workforce and really start to lose the ability to feed themselves and to cook real foods. And now we are seeing the consequences of that.
That's exactly right.
It's blowing out from there.
Exactly. And that's this aspect of, that's when we started the disintegration of food culture.
Yeah.
But I would like to say too that what you were eating in the 70s is nirvana compared to it's like, and I think for me, one of the things that I notice for a lot of, particularly, and my mum says this a lot, oh, well, you know, oh, we'll just buy a packet of biscuits now. And 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, you could buy a packet of biscuits that was fundamentally white flour, white sugar, palm oil, which is sustainable, and might have an actual flavour in it and real vanilla essence, and or it might have had butter in it.
Yeah.
That would have been 10 years ago, even maybe 5 years ago. But now, good luck trying to find that, because mostly what they'll be is manipulated white flour, so the gluten content's higher. It also has additives to it to make it perform better. The sugar will be, everything is manipulated. So yes, it might have sugar in it. That might say flour and sugar, but that flour and sugar will have been highly texturized, manipulated to have particular functions, to be softer, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then it'll be a hydrogenated fat, fake colour. It'll have a lot of numbers and additives in it to give it flavour, texture, colour, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Oh, we can get lost in this. Let's bring it around to, okay, so we have more and more of a sense of this conversation and how to look at food. What are some of your sort of guiding tips to making a start, to choosing foods? Perhaps if we're used to buying a box of cereal for breakfast and supermarket bread and some things for a sandwich for lunch and so on, how do we start to slowly, I think breakfast is always the best place to start. That's just I love looking at breakfasts, so maybe if we can start there.
Okay. What I'd like to say before I do that is that, yeah, I can do that, but really what it's about, the way you get long-lasting and real change, is when you understand why, and you learn how. Okay, that's what you get in my books. It's what my online class site is all about. It's like, you need both. You need, there's a place for having a recipe and just seeing it and getting a new ingredient and using it. But you need to know why, because and I call those nourishing wisdoms, that's foundations. And then you need the know-how. You need to know why, you need to know how, and they're the skills. And they both, you'll get better, you'll actually get the results you want and long-lasting change when you have the both going on, okay? And I've been writing now and teaching now for over 30 years, and I can tell you that that's the way you get the results that you want. There are not really, I really dislike the word hacks, whole food hacks. I'm going to tell it to you how it is. I'm going to probably a little bit like your mum, or God knows your grandma. I feel old enough some days, and or your favourite aunt. But I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to tell it to you how it is, and you need to do it step by step. But you need to inform yourself, which is what you're doing here on this summit, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm going to give you is how to build a whole and natural food pantry list. And you're going to look at some of those ingredients and you go, oh my, why, Jude? What the heck? But really what they are is just real ingredients. So, for example, if I might say to you, oh, look, just put a bit of tamari in this. What I'm really saying is you want to go and buy a real kind of soy, which will ground your recipe and salt it at the same time, rather than a fake soy. Yeah, there's real things. They still exist in the world. The supermarket's full of fake ones mostly, but there are real things that exist. And so really, in a sense, what you're asking me is how to eat. Yeah. And which, because it's a large conversation.
Yeah.
What we have for breakfast and what we have to lunch and what we have for dinner is a large conversation. Yeah. For example, what are you going to be doing that day? Because fundamentally, when you have breakfast, your breakfast is going to set you up. The food that you eat provides the fuel that you need to do the things you need to do and to run your body. Yeah. So, for example, if I'm having a solid morning like I am today, and I've started early because I'm 3 hours behind you, I had some, I usually have an egg breakfast of some kind, because egg is protein and fat. It will keep you going much longer. Fish is a really lovely breakfast too, really protein, fat, clean fuel. But I will pad it out with, I tend not to have carbohydrates so much for breakfast. I like the cleaner pathway of fat and protein, but I tend to have a lot of veggies at breakfast as well. It's tend to where I eat a lot of my seasonal veggies. But maybe if I've got a slower day like I did yesterday, and it was cold yesterday morning, I had porridge, but because I'm very much a believer in eating food closer to its natural state, I eat an oat. I have the oat kernel before it's been rolled, but I grind it up to make it quicker and easier to cook, and it's been soaked overnight, and I turn it into a porridge. So I know that all of you are probably going to think, well, that's not giving me any help, Jude. But let me say that I think this aspect of the fuel load of foods is carbohydrate doesn't keep you going as long. Protein and fat will keep you going much longer. And it depends what you need. Like weekends are great. Sunday is a great time for a pancake breakfast or French toast, which I'm a great believer in, or black sticky rice in summer with coconut milk and sesame seeds and coconut palm sugar and mango is delicious. Or it's a great snack, like biscuit and cake or something that or bread doesn't have to be in that form. It's still grain, but this is in a different form, and you could have had an eggy breakfast. So do you know what I would say to sum that up? I would say, and people say this to me often, think about what your grandma, or if you're my age, what you had or your mum used to have for breakfast, because they only had real food. Yeah, that's what they cooked. And the most critical thing is they actually ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah, you need to provide your body with the fuel it requires. And please remember that breakfast might be breakfast at a different time of the day. You know, like if you're a night worker, or you are not hungry when you first get up like me, because there are different body types as well. And that's another whole big discussion, like on Ayurveda and different body types as well. So what I would say is that the simplest way I can describe that is think of how your mum used to eat or your grandma used to eat, or old-fashioned foods, and go from there. But you'll find masses in my books as well. It's not difficult. A porridge is an easy thing to do. Eggy breakfast is an easy thing to do. You don't have to do a Nirvana Instagram-worthy amazing breakfast. Yeah, egg, veggies, egg on toast, egg with sausage. Yeah, just scrambled eggs and veggies.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be Nirvana. Okay.
Yeah. I think that there are some of those traditional wisdoms that are so valuable, and that, just knowing that you need to soak your oats. Yes, there's oats, but knowing that it's a really great idea to soak them overnight before you eat them. They're the little nuggets of wisdom that can make all the difference, that once were passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter and so on, and now they're the little bits that have been lost, aren't they?
They're the nourishing wisdoms. Okay, so in my books and in online on the classes, that's I'm about know why, nourishing wisdoms, know how,
yes,
do it, skill, information, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Okay? And it doesn't happen overnight. Okay, I think the thing that people have said to me over the years that has been the best bit of advice that they have had, and I see others kind of passing it on as well these days, is that you start off with one thing and then you just do it step by step. You start off with one simple thing, you get comfortable with it and understand it, and then you move on to another. You don't try and do everything at once.
Yeah.
You've got enough overwhelm in your life. And if possibly what they might think, Edwina, is they might think, or you might think as you think, well, okay, I'm going to focus on breakfasts. But my advice to you would be, probably just thinking about that popping into my head, is I would say probably that's not the best place to start. I think the best place to start is getting your head around the whys, first of all. Yeah. Giving yourself a really simple little meal plan. That's the online class Get Organised, is really so that once you've got, just get yourself comfortable cooking simply, knowing what you're going to cook for the week. So you think to yourself, okay, so that just takes so much out of your brain. Anybody that comes to me for food coaching, pretty much I start them all on meal planning, because it gives them a routine and a structure, which gives you space in your head to learn the things that you want to and need to learn. Yeah. So learn that one, tick it off. Oh yeah, okay, cool, got that, I get that. Yeah. On to the next one, got that. Yeah, great. Oh, man, this is all beginning to make sense.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I would recommend that you do. And that's what I'm providing, or that's what my aim is to provide on the online class site, okay, is these foundations and then the know-hows.
Yeah. That's magic. That's magic. Our time is up.
Oh, my God, we could talk for hours.
It's not fair. You touched on the gift, but if we can just clarify what you are giving our beautiful audience.
So what I just want to let people know is that I'm not doing as many face-to-face classes as I used to. I'm putting the classes online, and what I'm giving you is how to build a whole and natural foods pantry, like where you start, okay? And it's a handy little guide for you to go, okay, you don't need reams of things in your pantry. You just need a few that will really work for you. So that's what I'm giving you. But I've got a few really exciting things coming up towards the end of the year as well. It's like I'm doing, I'm going to have Whole Food for Children is being relaunched. It's been unavailable for a while it got reprinted and relaunched for about the umpteenth millionth time. And I'm going to be having a free webinar on that. And I'm Alex Stewart and I have got a joy webinar for Christmas coming up. So there's lots of really great things. So that will all be there that you can see in your little gift. And when you get your build a whole and natural pantry starter. Don't try and do it all at once. Yeah. Just start off little bit by little bit, get comfortable, and then think, oh, okay, I might go on to the next one. Yeah.
That's perfect. That is perfect. I feel so reluctant to wind this up because I feel
we could talk forever.
valuable. Is there anything in your, I mean, you've already given so much. Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with, or do you feel like you've covered?
I would like to say, I think, and what I'd like to leave you with is, it's a jungle out there with everyone telling you, oh my God, you've got to eat like this or you've got to eat like that. You know what? It's really a lot simpler than you think. Stop stressing about it. Just eat old-fashioned food.
Yeah.
You know? That's really, I would like to say to you, stop stressing and I find a quiet moment in your life. Enjoy your family. Make a cake. You know, joy and deliciousness are nutrients in their own right as well. And letting go of stress is a nutrient in its own right too. Take a deep breath. Yeah. It's not a competition. It's not a race. Live your life.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, Jude. So perfect. Thank you so
Such a pleasure.
much.
Thank you, Edwina. And so lovely to be here with all of you. And I look forward to seeing you in other places, in classes, online, wherever, in my books. I'm always there with you in the kitchen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jude. Bye.